Yezalamanda, siyayibona yezalamanda. Yezalamanda, siyayibona yezalamanda. Uyayibona iPirates. Yezalamanda, siyayibona yezalamanda. Awabona amabhakabhaka. Yezalamanda, siyayibona yezalamanda. Uyayibona iPirates.
Good day, family. Welcome on the Big Daddy Football Corner. Kamalamu Simanga Makhubu. Let's go, Bafethu, into this video. I did about 2 videos, guys, when I was doing squad analysis, for Orlando Pirates, and which players I think, Orlando Pirates needs to look at, and which one fits the model of Orlando Pirates, in even outside of Orlando Pirates and within the squad, who they need to maintain. Thank you for all the views on the 2 videos, and for me, not only is it just me saying what I think, it's also a learning a moment for me, because in football, never get to a point where you think you know it all. There is always somebody who's just gonna make one comment that's gonna trigger something in your head. So it's very interesting, the conversation that we are having, not only on YouTube, we even take it out to Twitter, on all those. But as I mentioned in all the 2 videos that I did, I said I'm going to do a tactical analysis video of things and tactical tweaks, or let me put it this way, of tactical tweaks that I want the new Orlando Pirates coach that is coming, which I don't know when and why is still not announced, and why and the reasoning behind of wanting those particular changes. And I want you to join with me and sink deep into it, and let's comment and like this video, as well as the channel as well. Subscribe to the channel, and then let's talk football, in specific. The question, for this video is based on all the games that Orlando Pirates has played last season, all competitions, and how they lost key matches, and ended up not even winning certain critical cup and competitions. It's a reason why I'm going into this video. For me, they are a couple, of moments for Orlando Pirates that still heads up to this moment. The Pyramids lost in the CAF Champions League will still be islonda that will sit in my heart for a very long time, because Orlando Pirates did not deserve to lose there. The Kaizer Chiefs lost in the Nedbank Cup could have been avoided by certain things that needed to happen in that particular match. The Sundowns loss that happened at Loftus, where Orlando Pirates lost the league, could have been prevented. The Mackenzie loss that happened in the Carling Cup at Orlando Stadium could have also been avoided by just certain things that needed to be done, which I want to talk to, going into next season, right? So for me, tactically, I think we could have done better, and executed certain actions better than we did, in those particular games, right? So based on all the tactical mistakes that happened and that I noticed last season, this is what's the reason why I want to talk to this video to the new Orlando Pirates coach that is still to be announced, and I want to say to the coach that is coming, to say, here are the things that you need to look at the very first day you step your foot at Rand Stadium. This is what you need to, you need to do to actually look at Orlando Pirates, but on a more tactical basis. So let's start with one. The very first one, for me, ladies and gentlemen, is the change of formation. But remember, I'm saying formation, I'm not saying game system, because formation will always be static, and system will always be dynamic, depending on what phase of the match are we in, and then it changes. But for me, the 4-2-3-1, I would like Orlando Pirates to move away from next season. I'm not saying there shouldn't be games where you play it, where you see that it is suitable for a tactical plan for that particular match, but I would love Orlando Pirates to move into a more 4-4-2. And there's a reason of why I want to do it. Number one, the reason is Orlando Pirates last season under Jose became too predictable at times. When you go play Orlando Pirates, you know they're going to come with 4 center backs. They're going to come with 2 central midfielders. It's going to be then the third line, which includes the wingers and the central attacking midfielder. And then you're going to have a striker. And at times it became too easy to plan and predict. There was nothing new that you're going to see. That sometimes there are games that Orlando Pirates could have won by an avalanche of goals by just tactical switches that they could have done in this match. For me, the striker, most importantly, was too isolated from the rest of the team. That's why for me, Umabasa went from scoring 16 goals the previous season to scoring 7, because they have figured it out in terms of how to ensure that they isolate him out of it. And for me, the distance at times, especially when we want to attack, the distance between the attackers, which is the number 9, and the rest of the team was too huge. There was no player that was linking linking the midfield as well as the strikers. I think in most games where I got frustrated was because of that specific moment. Again, game control. Guys, Orlando Pirates for the past season or so specifically has, as much as they have been winning, but we've not been controlling games. Sometimes ubuzohlala uminye for the entire game because you can see the game is getting away from Orlando Pirates. And in some games, we were punished because we were not controlling the game. We were not controlling the game from possession, from a possession perspective, but also the midfield. We did not dominate teams in midfield. I can count a lot of games where teams could easily overload, in midfield and have numerical superiority, and we are nowhere to be found. Good example of those games, Cape Town City, when we played Cape Town City, Cape Town, a good example where we were dominated in midfield. In some game, Cheaper dominated us in midfield, and for me, I want Orlando Pirates next season, to change the formation solely because of us not being able to control the midfield, right? And then the last thing that also makes the midfield not to be uncontrollable or not to control certain games is the role that Jose Rivero decided to give Utito Maswanganyi, And for me, Jose, as much as I love him to bits, but I was not of the opinion that Utito needs to play a free role. The Tito that I want, in Rulani's voice, the Tito that I want is the Tito that plays for the national team. I don't want a Tito that will roam the entire field anytime that he feels like doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all good, nice and well. I agree. But for me, for most part of the season, that worked against Orlando Pirates. It must have worked for the player. And also the fact that he's an intelligent player. He knows where to create overload, because that helps to have a number 10 in some games where the number 10 can roam anywhere where he feels there's space, there's time, there's also there's certain spaces where he wants to overload and create a problem. It's all nice and well, but I just feel that tactically, for the tactical organization of the entire team, we fell short, because in midfield, all other teams could do, because remember we are playing a 4-2-3-1. You've got 2 central midfielders, and at the tip of the triangle, you need Utito to stay at the tip of the triangle. So if I move Utito all around and becomes everywhere, now you've got 2 central midfielders. You know what the other teams did? They just had an extra player in midfield, and there were 3. And every time the ball is playing to midfield, there's always a 3v2 situation. And then clever teams like Ichipa will then take a 4th player in maybe a right winger in this instance, and bring him into midfield and create a box of 4. And all of a sudden, you've got a 4v2. Now, what then happens is that you are being that team already. When the ball is played into midfield, there is no way the 2 players are going to mark 4 players, because Utito is roaming all around. He's not within and that for me is another critical decision that the coach needs to say, Tito, from next season, if you are playing in midfield, you stay in that midfield, you create that numerical superiority, or you balance that midfield so that we don't get over it. For me, that is a big decision that needs to be made next season. And one of the many reasons of why I want the system to change is because I want us to control at midfield. We'll get into detail, especially in the attacking third, in terms of where I also want the way I'm preferring us to go for the 4-2-2. The second reason, or the second my ask, from Orlando Pirates, is to invest into critical specialist roles. Because I think Orlando Pirates fell short last season because of that. Yeah, happy with this. Set piece coach. Orlando Pirates needs to go out in the market and go and find a set piece coach. Even if it means going to Europe to get one. I was lucky enough to be in a football, into a football event last season where Machine Echukal, who also works with the Turkey national team, they were reviewing what happened in the Euro 2024 because they watch all the games and collect all the data and they look at the trends of where football is going, and then they come back to the Turkey national team and advise them of the direction that the national team needs to take, because that's where football is moving towards. And Machine Echukal mentioned something very critical. He says 35% of the goals that were scored in Euro were scored from set pieces, guys. That shows the importance of investing for every soccer team right now in this crucial phase of the match. A good case study is the Arsenal and how they invested into a top set piece coach. And look at how they attack set pieces, and look at how they defend set pieces. And for me, that is the direction that Orlando Pirates needs to go. And the PSL ungadla kamnandi when you invest into that, because teams have not go to that extra length of ensuring that they invest into profile of players that allows them to dominate that set piece game. A good example case study is Chiefs when they had Morgan Gold and Matoho, and at some point Utefo Umashamayite. They were lethal. There were goals left, right, and center coming from that set piece, and I think that's how Chiefs. That's how Chiefs actually ended up winning, most of the games, because of those for that tweak. And I want Orlando Pirates to move that direction, because international football has moved that direction. How we defended corner kicks, we all know what happened. How we defended lateral free kicks, I can make a lot of examples. How we attack set pieces and how we are poor in that aspect of the game, the stats are there to prove. In the 43 goals that we have scored, there are only 4-headed goals. And for me, it's a shame, because we have a number 9 who's very good in the air with Umabas, but we are not playing crosses inside the box. One of the things we're going to talk about as well in terms of our attacking scheme, in that particular instance. The other role that I want Orlando Pirates to invest in is the strikers coach. When Scott Chikelde, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing correctly, came to Orlando Pirates for 6 weeks as a strikers coach, Juka Manja, after he went, look at what happened to Juka Manja in terms of his finishing. And for me, it is one of the biggest weaknesses in the PSL, that we don't have quality strikers, abantu abashineti, abantu that smells where the ball is going to be, people who have got the technical skills to score, quality goals, people that when you give them the ball, the only thing they want is for the ball to kiss the net. If you call it what Mashego, guys, he's a good case study for me of a striker that had the instincts of scoring goals, because he wasn't a shy baller, anyhow he was placing the ball. He knew exactly where to place the curl of the ball. He scored crackers of goals, and I honestly think that South Africa needs to invest into goal, but that is in a short term. The mid and long term is to go back to development and have striker coaches and identify strikers at a very young age and start getting trained. It is a shame to watch in the PSL a number 9 that can't even control the ball, a number 9 that can't even take a shot on target, and you think to yourself, wow, So then the third thing, that I want the Orlando Pirates coach to look at, but now we're going to start from the back to front, from the goalkeeper, and go forward, right? And for me, I want Orlando Pirates to work, extensively on the defending principles and the defending schemes next season. Where do I start? The goalkeeper, Sipho Shaheen. There's a lot of work that I want next season, Tyrene Diamonds, to be able to work with Sipho Shaheen. Sipho Shaheen is currently the second best goalkeeper in the PSL. And if he can work on one aspect of his game, it takes him high to be up there and be one of the best goalkeepers in the African continent. And this is an area that Usenzome, you are also struggled in, at some point, and he started to improve. Because I want to see Shaheen that when an opportunity comes that he can play a game, whether available, whether Williams is not available or whatever situation it could be, or at some point when they decide to phase him out, he must be ready for the national team. Because when the chance comes once, he must grab it with both hands. For me, I want him to work on his box dominance. I want him to take control of his box. And in some instances, on corner kicks, on free kicks, he is hesitant. He doesn't have the timing. He's not communicating with defense who's marking, and he's the one that goes out and everybody must cover the back post. He doesn't... I want him to control his 18 area box. And at the moment, he has all the tools because he has started communicating, and you can see that for me, he's a future Orlando Pirates captain. But that aspect of his game, he needs to put more emphasis into making sure that he improves it, because he's going to be world class, And if he can improve that, it takes Orlando Pirates defending of set pieces into another level, into a better level next season. The other thing as well, while we are talking about that, is the center back profile that Orlando Pirates have. But faith, we cannot lie and sit here and say a height as a center back is not critical. Us as people that are scouts, when a center back has height and can play the ball, if you can play the ball, even a goalkeeper, if you are tall as a goalkeeper and you can play with your feet, uyinyama. Because already the two key things that in modern football that are required, okunye in terms of timing, in terms of communicating, in terms of show stopping, sesingakufixa. The coach are going to fix it. But those two items are critical. If you look at the center backs of Orlando Pirates, Sibisi, Xogi, Sesane, Mbogasi, all those players are less than 1.8 meter tall. The tallest player there is Uxogi. The rest are shorties into that. And that, as much as one can say, you can have a short player, he can able to jump, but if you've got two center backs who are also short, when you are playing against Mayele, what happens? When you are going to play against Zamovic, TX Galaxy, what happens? When you are playing against Evanga, what happens? Especially big profile like number 9. It can work, guys, in the PSL, because PSL has more or less like short, even Sundowns, Shalulile, Reynas, they are more quick. You can get away with it. But when you go into Champions League, go and look at the profile of center backs that the Al Ahly of this world has, the Pyramids of this world has, the Aspirants of this world. All of them is like 1.9. I was watching, a Club World Cup. I was watching it, for Flamengo, for instance, and then is it Botafogo or something like that from Brazil. They had a 1.98 meter tall center back, and I was like, wow. So for me, Orlando Pirates in the center back position, it's not about who you buy. It's about the profile of the center back that you're going to buy. If Orlando Pirates were to go to buy a center back, Orlando Pirates needs to go and invest in a center back that is as tall as Unda, a ball-playing center back like Unda, and then you have addressed that issue. One of the reasons why even Mbogazi, I'm busy talking about him being moved to midfield, is to open the space for us to sign a center back and move him into midfield, because he's got all the tools to play that role. And also his biggest weakness, which is his timing when balls are played into set. Uma Adala in the CDM role, you are closing that particular weakness. The left back profile of Orlando Pirates, I know that obviously everybody, including Chiefs and everyone, including Sundowns fans as well, we all know that Basadin is the cream of the crop when it comes to left back. But for me, if Orlando Pirates cannot afford to compete with Sundowns with 20 million, it is very, very important that the profile of the left back that they buy ensures that assists them in defending set pieces. That's why for me, I recommended to Letlapa to be signed. And there's a reason why I did. There's a reason why I recommended. It's because when you have the shortest player on your right hand side, which is Diano, on the left back position, you gotta have a player who's taller than him and also who can defend set pieces. Now take the scenario when they attack side Liga Diano, they cross the ball. Now you have Endamane, for instance, in your center back, and you have Enda in your center back. Behind them, you have a left back who, when the ball is crossed, turns into a third center back, and at his height, he's able to defend those set pieces. When you are going on attack, we're going to talk about the attacking schemes. You have 3 center backs, that can attack the box. Then you add your number 9 into that. And then if, let's say, Mahopa, will talk about it when he plays as a 10, you've got 4 or 5 players that gives you power, strength, aerial ability, aerial threat, when defending and when you are attacking. That's why for me, the profile of a left back that Orlando Pirates buys is very critical. And the profile of the left back and the center back that Orlando Pirates is very critical. But I know Obasadin, when he comes, I'm going to explain at some point why he could be a game changer and a roof raiser, for Orlando Pirates. So the last element of defense is Orlando Pirates defending narrow, ensuring that your right back and your right center back and your left center back, and your left back, the space is always narrow. Modern football right now, if you go and look at the club World Cup, balls are played in between the defenders that are defending. It's always in between where they play the balls. So you have to make sure that your four defenders are always in sync into terms of how they shift. When the ball is played on the right back, they shift together and they close the spaces in between. They remain compact. If I can be honest, I've been impressed by Jose's team in terms of how they close the spaces, to a point that Utiano at some point will even go too close and leave the winger free, and then wait for the winger, for the ball to be played to the winger. That's when he comes out, because he also have pace to be able to, when the ball is shifted, he runs into the. But in some instances, I just felt it is a lot of danger, especially on a winger that is lethal, that can take you on. It is very, very dangerous to do that, colleagues. And Bafet, people of the channel, I want to end this video here. I don't want to make this video too long. I will do episode 2. In the next episode that we're going to do, look at the build-up shape, the build-up structure. We'll talk about the rest defense that I wish to represent. We'll talk about the attacking schemes. We'll talk about the attacking variations. We'll look at the different profiles that will impact the attacking structure. We'll look at the role of the second striker, when we for next season. We'll look at the behaviors, the different behaviors that Orlando Pirates needs to have in the final third. We'll talk about a lot of things that I might have left in this particular video. But if you want, for us to talk further on this topic, please like first, then comment first, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Aye,